Chicka, 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 boom!
One reason why America is the greatest country in the world. Every other country
Sucks.
Guess what their Super Bowl win count is? 0.
Welcome to Your Brain on God. My goodness, it's episode 5.
Episode 5.
We're
halfway to the average.
Right?
Average podcast doesn't make it past 10.
Listen,
right?
you guys, I don't know if this is actually a true statement that I heard, but it kind of ties in, but I'm going to believe it anyway, okay? That apparently only podcasters get to about 10 episodes before they quit. Think about that, Daryl.
Yeah. This is halfway. We're halfway there.
We're halfway there, guys.
And we're just getting started.
We're almost average.
Halfway average. Halfway to average.
Halfway to average. Yeah. How you doing, Daryl?
I'm good. Thanks, Aaron. How
That's
are
awesome.
you?
I'm doing well, man.
Good. We didn't have our normal 3 hours of just talking together and catching up on life.
No,
that we have on Friday mornings.
This is a little different. We usually get the juices flowing, talking in the morning coffee, but we're recording at night. This is crazy.
Yeah, different.
In la noche. Recording at night. Super excited that you're with us, everybody. We're going to be talking about something super special that's going to tickle the membranes of your mind.
Tickle them. Tickle them good.
Tickle them good.
The membranes.
I think the purpose of life is to every day, in some way, have your membranes tickled.
Man, do I enjoy having my membranes tickled.
It's like an infomercial. Do you enjoy having your membranes tickled?
I sure do.
Well, sign up for YBOG.com. For only $19.99 a month, you could have your membranes tickled as long as you want.
YBOG.com.
YBOG, that's not an actual website, guys.
Thing.
Do not try. This episode is brought to you by Clout. Everybody get some.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Anyway, guys, we've got a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking about something that is called confirmation bias. Yeah. Confirmation bias, which is basically the idea that you get what you're looking for. And that we most often look for the things in our own minds. We look for information that confirms our own beliefs. Mm-hmm. And we kind of stray away from any information that doesn't confirm our beliefs because we like our beliefs. Right. We like to stay comfortable in our beliefs. Our beliefs are a beautiful fleece comforter that we like to wrap ourselves in. And we like to stay safe in those thoughts and those beliefs. And then we find all the information and we'll prove our points with a bunch of information that confirms what we believe already, and then don't actually listen to other points so that we can keep safe in our own blanket of beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever asked yourself, how can they believe that?
I have.
I have as well.
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that question often is bias, confirmation bias.
Right.
We tend to move towards the things that we believe in or want to believe in, and ignore or discredit the things that go against it.
Right.
And in my own life, I don't know how many times I've asked myself that. Why do I believe this? I have asked that question.
Right.
Actually, why do I believe this? And sometimes I couldn't provide an answer. And so I had to do research and sometimes change my view on what I believed.
It's actually crazy how many beliefs that we have that we probably, if someone asked us to explain our beliefs, we would have difficulty to explain them, or how we got to those conclusions, or what facts actually back up what we believe. A lot of times if people actually ask us, oh, why do you believe that? It's like,
Right.
I've always believed this. This is just, I've grown up in this belief. And a lot of times, I mean, we grow up obviously all in families for the most part, some type of family, whether or not you're not even in a, I guess the nuclear family, that you could grow up in a foster care or adoption or something like that, or you grow up in an environment that teaches you different things. It teaches you things about the world, teaches you things about yourself, teaches you morals, what to do right and wrong for the most part. And then we grow up in those things, and those things get confirmed time and time again, and we hear those thoughts, especially when you're a kid. You're so malleable.
Right. We're just taking in whatever is given to us because that's all we know.
Right.
You know, I think that's the thing is that if we don't know any different, why would we think it's any different?
Right.
We just kind of tend to accept things as we believe them to be because that's all that's been presented often. I think especially when we're young.
Totally.
When we're really young, that's what's happening. We're just like learning what the world is like, and then all this stuff is coming in, all this information, and we're just taking it and like, this is how the world is.
Did you ever have a moment where you came to that point, or at least do you remember that moment where you said like, maybe what I believed or what I grew up believing isn't true?
Yeah.
Because I feel like everybody eventually gets to that point where they start to question what they grew up in. Do you have like a specific moment that you can remember where you're like, I think I need to actually look into all these things that I've been learning since I was a kid?
A specific moment, I remember certain things I looked into. I remember looking into a lot of like creation versus evolution arguments, starting off in a particular manner, you know, looking for reasons to believe what I already believed. And then I started looking intentionally, trying to understand the other side. Like, okay, well, why... There's a lot of people that believe this, so let me look into that. And does this make sense?
Right. Into evolution.
Into evolution.
Because you grew up in a creation.
I grew up in yeah. And never really questioned it. I didn't know why I believed it. I didn't know details about why I believed creation, 7-day creation. So I started looking into 7-day creation, looking into other arguments and example and ways of explaining creation that weren't necessarily 7 days. And then other ways that looking into evolution, specifically trying to understand evolution. And that brought me to a place where I was able to understand and articulate a bit more both sides, and kind of it brought me to a place of being able to understand, okay, I can see how both sides of these can make sense and why people can believe this, why people can believe that. And growing up in church and going to church often, I actually started getting kind of not irritated, but whenever I heard Christians talk about evolution in a way that didn't make sense,
right? When
they were trying to discredit it, but they were saying things about it that weren't true, and so it's like you can't discredit this thing that you're talking about if you don't actually know what it is,
right?
And so it made me think I really need to know what I'm talking about if I'm going to talk against something. If I'm going to say I don't believe something and say why, I want to understand what it is, you know, and I want to know why I don't agree with it,
right?
Rather than just saying what I think it means because I don't believe it, and kind of taking a shallow perspective. And that opened up my mind to seeing things different ways. You know, certain things I started letting go of, certain things I started grabbing onto, and other things I'm like, they're just up in the air, you know?
Right.
Some things we just don't have any solid proof for.
Right.
Or, you know, some things you can't have a clear answer, and that's okay. I remember when I was really little, Santa Claus.
Oh shoot, bro!
Shoot, can we do? Are we going there right now?
I think I have youth students.
But it's like Christmas is just around the corner.
Yeah.
Can I talk about this? I don't know.
If you have kids, cover their ears right now.
Oh my gosh! When I was little,
you're gonna kill the holiday cheer, bro.
Should I save this for later?
Should I maybe save it for after Christmas, dude?
Okay, I can. I totally can.
Have you ever seen Elf?
I've seen.
That's
Elf,
how Santa gets around, dude. By Christmas cheer.
Christmas cheer.
And right now
just
you're
gonna leave
cut it in
No,
half,
I'm not.
dude.
I can't.
He's not even gonna be able to
I
deliver
love Elf
gifts.
too much. I love Elf. Out of respect for the movie, at least, I'm not going to tell what I was about to tell.
But basically, you're saying that you had beliefs.
I had a moment, where I had questioned. I had learned some information from some siblings that told me something.
You had questioned SC.
And it caused me to question SC. And then I told my friend all the stuff my siblings told me, and my friend cried, and I got in trouble.
Do you know I almost got in a fight over Santa when I was a kid?
Really?
Yeah. This kid next door to me. I'm not going to say his name.
Okay.
But he lived next door to me, and he told me, oh gosh, now we're into it, man. We're already in. He told me that Santa was taking a vacation.
Okay.
Yeah,
he told me Santa was taking a vacation like that year, so he wasn't going to come or something.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I got so mad, dude. I wanted to fight him. I think I was only 10 years old, but I would have thrown hands right there.
Jeez.
And then I started crying. And I ran. I wasn't 10. I had to be earlier than that.
You don't have to be. It's okay, Aaron.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ran inside and I cried in my mom's arms. And I was like, can you believe he said that Santa was taking a vacation? He's coming, right, Mom? And she's like, yeah, Aaron. I grew up believing that, you know?
Yeah.
And then he didn't come. So,
he took a vacation?
He took a vacation, bro.
Whoa.
It's bad news. But I think something that's really interesting is that sometimes we grow up in cultures, or we grow up in communities where certain thoughts or certain ideas, beliefs are actually taboo.
Yeah, certain things are taboo, or certain beliefs are necessary.
Right.
In order to like actually socially be accepted.
Right. Yeah. So you growing up in the faith, or growing up in a Christian household, there were certain things that you didn't even go to. Right. Mm-hmm. And I can get super controversial right now. Okay. But there's a guy named Rob Bell. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he wrote a book called Love Wins. Mm-hmm. And it was basically opening up the idea that maybe hell isn't what we think it is. And that that universalism, he kind of brought in the idea of universalism, just his thoughts about these things. He was ostracized, totally destroyed by the Christian community because he had the ideas that maybe hell is a little bit different than the doctrine that we had on hell. Now, I'm not trying to make a case for or against hell in this thing, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that you can grow up in an environment and then think a different way, or maybe just have a different thought. Maybe it's not what I grew up in, learning about, say, hell, or about purity, or about, I don't know, what being righteous looks like, or what actually living a life of faith looks like. And I'm just speaking specifically to my own examples, right? And the moments, the realizations that I've had to have about what genuine faith looks like, and, you know, getting out of those mindsets early in the beginning. But even having those thoughts can ostracize you from a community. And so it's a lot easier to maintain the beliefs that you have growing up instead of changing those things, because it could mean the loss of community, the loss of connection, the loss of the loss of relationship.
Questioning, even just because I think I didn't actually read the book, but I think that he just posed the question.
He posed a question.
Right. Even just asking the question about it.
Right.
People got really riled up about it.
Super riled up.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, this is what I think. I think that this is the way we've doing it wrong.
Right.
He didn't say that, which that would make more sense if people were like, no, you're totally wrong.
Right. That's heresy.
Yeah, but he asked a question, and like, what if it's different? Mm-hmm. And it was almost like like trying to open up a dialogue on something, you know? And I think that in the book, he emphasizes the love of God. That's like what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. He's like, the love of God is so great, you know, and that's kind of where he's going. But the fact that he asked the question that was different to what maybe more of a traditional belief would be, he got so much flack for it, and got targeted and torn down. He's like, his whole career path and, like, you know, what he was doing changed.
Right. I heard countless, maybe not countless, that's a lot, but I heard a lot of Christians talk about Rob Bell, like even growing up, you know, they talk about Rob Bell and the heresies of Rob Bell, and and they hadn't even read his book.
Right.
But it was so ingrained in the culture, at least when I was growing up, that this guy was like, he was way off his rocker.
But they didn't even know how to explain why he was. They
had no idea, because they had never read his book. They didn't know that he posed the question. All they had actually heard was beliefs of other people. They had taken those beliefs because those people were in their community. And so they took those beliefs to confirm their own beliefs that they had grown up in. And so when they actually hear someone that says, oh, I read his book or whatever, it's like, are you kidding me? Why would you ever read this guy's book, or why would you ever associate yourself with this guy, or why would you ever invite this guy to your church? Because he's thinking all these things, and it's like, wait, have you read this guy's book? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then stop talking about him, you know? Whether or not he's wrong or not, you know what I mean? Whether or not he should be thinking about those things or not, you know what I mean? It's
even if he did say all this, like, you know, even if he did take a stance that, well, that's very clearly heretical.
Right.
If you don't actually know what he said, then maybe we should hold off and refrain from making a judgment on what he said. Right.
Totally.
And it's okay for us to, you know, be unsure about it and be unsure about him, what he thinks. But until we look at the source and see what he's actually saying, I think we need to withhold our judgment on what's right or what's wrong.
Right.
And speaking of confirmation bias, I think that when I was reading it, where it was talking about we have a confirmation bias, a bias towards a source. We'll just trust the source, regardless of going to the actual source of the event. So
Right.
a friend that I trust told me that Robel thinks this way.
Right.
And so I trust my friend. And so I'm going to think Robel thinks this way. I'm going to take what he just said and make it truth.
Right.
Maybe my friend was wrong. Maybe my friend was reinterpreting something that he heard from somebody else.
Right.
But I'm going to take what you heard because I have a bias towards you.
Right.
And so I'm going to make that, and I want to make sure I'm aligned with you, that, we still fit. I'm not going to go against you because I want us to be in a community together. And I don't want to cause tension or strife or be ostracized like Rob Bell was. So obviously I'm not going to think what Rob Bell thinks.
Right.
So I'm going to say, whatever you're saying, I'm going to agree with you. Yeah, he probably was really bad, wasn't he?
Yes.
And then I'll share the same thing because I just took what you said and I made it truth. Right. I took what you said and made that a fact. And maybe I didn't actually look at what he said. I didn't read what he said. This isn't about Rob Bell, but this happens with things, I think, often, where we hear somebody else's opinion on something and we'll take that and treat it as a fact and we'll say it as a fact.
Right.
Like I've heard people hear things or read something or somebody ask a question and then they re-say it as a statement. Like if Rob Bell said, "What if hell's different than what we think?" Then somebody else says, "Rob Bell said hell is different to what we think." You know what I mean?
It's so bad. Yeah.
And this internal natural tendency to confirm what we already believe and look for arguments, evidence to prove that what we believe is true,
Right.
or that what we believe is the correct thing to believe,
Right.
And ignore anything that goes against it. Right? We discredit, we ignore, we minimize information that isn't going to build my argument for what I believe in.
Right.
And in a social context, that helps keeps me unified with the people that believe the things I believe in.
Right.
Because then we keep believing the same things together.
Right.
We don't have issues. But if I grow up in a family that believes something, and then I say something that's different to what my family believes, suddenly there's tension in the community.
Right.
So it's just easier if I don't question the things I grew up with, if I don't question the things that I believe in, and I just find reasons to continue believing what I already believe.
Beliefs are incredibly important to us, like incredibly important. That's why we bicker about them. That's why we fight about them. That's why we have so many arguments over beliefs. They're incredibly important to us. And just like you said, like we've been talking about, is that they're incredibly social. Our beliefs are incredibly social. So most of the people that we hang out with, they believe the same things that we believe. For the most part, unless you get someone who's very maybe either eclectic or just very inviting, will have a group of friends that they normally hang out with that are, you have a Democrat, and you have a Republican, you have a Buddhist, you have a Hindu, you have a Christian. That's usually not the case. Most of the time we hang out around people that believe the same way that we do. And we all watch the same things that confirm the things that we believe to create even tighter community around what we believe. And we listen to the same people who believe what we believe to confirm what we believe, so we can stay in those safe communities of belief, right? Yeah. And so it gets into this whole these communities of confirmation. We talk about communities of projection. There's communities of
communities of confirmation.
The communities of confirmation, but we surround ourselves with information. I know this has happened to me a lot, and I've seen it a lot in social media as well, just personally, where you watch a video on social media and it has, maybe, especially in the political climate right now, I was watching, right-wing videos, watching left-wing videos. But if I watch a right-wing video, then the next 10 videos that Facebook gives me is all right-wing videos. And then I can just go on a
right-wing spree.
A right-wing spree where it's just like all I'm seeing is the same people talking about the same things, confirming the same beliefs. And then next thing you know, I'm thinking that everybody is thinking the same way that I'm thinking now. Or everybody's thinking the same, and we can get ourselves wrapped up in these confirmations. And then if even somebody has an argument against that, it's like, what are you talking about?
Everybody believes this. You know, it's like, it's so obvious that it's this way.
Haven't you seen this video? And it's like, no, they've been watching the left-wing videos.
Right. which you have no idea about because you're only watching one side, right?
Because you're only watching one side.
And so when we do that, we totally put ourselves in this place of susceptible of confirmation bias.
Right.
Because we're never questioning or watching an opposing view or something different.
Right.
And with social media, it's built for that. It's built to give us what we want. It's built to give us the news feed that we want to watch. On Instagram, I have like animal things I watch, like weird animals, like these weird sea creatures. So on my feed,
that's all it gives you.
It gives me a bunch of animals, a bunch of like weird animals doing funny things or cute things or like just really cool things, like, and that's what confirmation bias is, right? We just naturally, we want to find things that we want to see.
Right.
And so Instagram and, Facebook and social media, YouTube, the algorithms are made for that.
Right.
It's built to show us the things we want to see that we like seeing.
Right.
And that's kind of happening inside of our brain all the time, right? Like our brain's looking for certain things. So that's the things, those are the things that stand out. Instagram has thousands, millions of videos,
right?
Millions of photos that it could show me on my homepage or whatever.
Right.
But instead it shows me the things that I want to see.
Right.
So inside and like internally in our mind, that's what's going on. We have all this information around us, but we're only looking at the things that are already what we want to see, right? That we would align with what we want to align with. And I think one of the dangers of what you were mentioning is whenever that happens, when we're in a group of people, we're all hanging out with people, that think the same way we do. We're listening to the people that think the same way we do. We're reading about the stuff that's thinking the same way we do. If we were 100% on the truth, and what's real, that's not a bad thing,
right?
Because then we're always surrounded by the truth. But the danger is, it's really hard for something to be 100% accurate. It's in one perspective.
I don't think that's possible.
I don't know.
I don't know that a community you can't. I mean,
right. And if one perspective probably won't be the full picture. Right. But if we only stick to one perspective and look to one thing, we're going to be convinced that this is the way that it is. And I think that's the danger of it, is we start to close off our ability to learn and to see other perspectives.
Right.
Whenever we're surrounding ourselves with information that's confirming what we already believe.
Right.
And there's this danger where our confirmation bias just runs rampant.
Right.
Right. And we're probably not looking at things that are in a full picture if it's just cycling within itself, right? Because if I'm right in what I'm believing, then cool. But if something about that is off, even just one thing, I'm never going to know it. If there's two things that are off, I'm never going to know it.
Right.
If everything's off, I'm never going to know it. I could be in a confirmation bias cycle that's confirming all these things that are not actually true or factual. Right. But I'm never going to know that because I'm only taking in the information that I want to take in. That's confirming the things that I believe already.
Yeah. I'm only listening to the same people, or I'm only in the same community that is continually confirming even the lies that we believe. We could create communities around lies, and we could have, bits of untruths that get into those communities. And then next thing we know, we're confirming our own lies, confirming our own kind of, slavery to those lies. Right. And then that's a really bad thing. And every community has, even within a community, even if you guys are gathered around maybe the same thing, there's always outliers of people that believe a little bit differently, or no two people believe exactly the same way.
Right.
Right. But what was I saying? But when you're what was I saying?
I don't know. We're in a community, everybody's believing the same. I just
totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, we can. Oh, what I was saying is that we can get in those communities, and there's different outliers, or we can, in every community, we can believe some sort of lies, right?
Right.
No community is just 100% truth. Everyone believes like 100% truth, and it's just like objectively, like this group, it'll be perfection. It'll be a utopia, basically, right? But there's always going to be those lies, and so if we're not willing to step outside of our own bias, our own cognitive bias that our brain naturally does, which is finding the things, looking for the things that confirm our beliefs, and take a deep reflection on, okay, why do I actually believe those things? What is the actual evidence behind what I believe? How much of an influence is my community on me? in what I believe and the people around me. What sources am I actually going to? Are these credible sources? And actually taking the time to reflect, to undo some of that bias that we have towards that one side, whether it's political, or whether it's in religion, or whether it's in in sports or whatever. You'll always get what you're looking for unless you actually take the time to actually reflect and say, what am I actually feeding myself right now? And actually more on like a personal level, just like a relationship level. I know that growing up, I had a very different, I wouldn't say different, that's not the right word, but a harsh look at like relationships growing up. So it was like there's just a lot that happened in my family, and it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth towards relationships. And so in my own mind, I had kind of over time confirmed this belief that relationships, like intimate relationships, if I was going to have a relationship with a girl, that it was just going to be bad.
Right.
I'd kind of grown up with a belief like I can't do that. I haven't seen like a healthy relationship. I don't want to get into one of those things. And so what would happen in relationships, because of that bias and that belief, I would go looking for things in those girls or in those relationships that were bad, so that it would prove my point that all relationships are toxic. Right? Or I would have a fear or a belief that, that a relationship that I don't get into, just being honest and vulnerable, that it's not going to be enough.
Right.
Or, she's not going to be enough, or I'm not going to be enough. And so what I would do when I got into that relationship, I already had that belief entering into that relationship. And so what I would do is I would look for everything. And that's what I was focused on. I was focused on finding the things that proved what I already believed.
Right. That it wasn't going to work out, or that it wasn't going to work out. Issues, or that. Yeah.
And guess what that does? It makes it not work out. Because you get what you look for.
Right.
So, and I think you were counseling me during a lot of this, a lot of these times where it's like, Aaron, you're getting what you're looking for, and you would say that. And that's actually your thought towards me, is that if you keep looking for something not to work out, or you keep looking for something to not be enough, or you keep looking for your own beliefs that you already have inside of you, you're going to get what you're looking for, and things are going to fall apart if you're afraid that they're going to fall apart, or they're going to work out, and you're going to see the best in somebody too, if you believe that you can see the best in them. Right? If you're looking for all of the good things, if you believe that there's good inside of the human next to you, it's like, I'm going to be looking for those things to call you into greatness. If I actually value you, I'm going to be looking for the things that are valuable in you. Right. And so that deeply affects relationships. You have kind of like the core beliefs that affect communities, and then on a deeper individual level as well, personal relationships with people. If I don't actually take a reflection, say, well, what am I actually bringing into relationships that is already confirmed in my heart? What am I looking for in people that they're constantly going to prove my point if I don't let go of my own bias about, how this relationship is going to end up, or who this person is, or because of gossip. We talked about that a little bit before we started recording, but about, you hear a word about somebody, and now that word has kind of clouded the image that you have of that person, and now you're seeing them through that lens, and it's a dangerous thing. You start looking for those
things that you heard someone else say. Yeah, I think in personal relationships that happens a lot, that somebody behaves a certain way, or we see something happen, or hear them say something, or they do something, and then we start holding them to that standard. Like we're taking them and we're pushing them against the standard. Like, no, this is the way you are, and we're assuming that they're going to keep behaving this way or keep doing this thing. And I think that, we kind of touched on this on a couple of episodes, like, where we talk about a little bit about bias and confirmation. But I think in personal relationships, it can become so toxic when we assume someone's going to be a certain way, and therefore we don't give them a chance to be different.
Right.
And I think you said this in the first episode, that we don't allow ourselves to be surprised by people.
Right.
Whenever we are believing someone's a certain way, so now we're going to be looking for them to act that way. We're going to be looking for them to talk to us that way. We're going to be looking for them to behave, to do these things, to make these choices. And then we're going to say, see, I told you.
Right.
I told you do this.
Right.
And we don't see the opposite. We don't see them when they're being different. We don't see them when they're being in a way that's really supportive, or really helpful, or really healthy. And we look down and we point out the negative things.
Right.
And I think that maybe in the beginning of a romantic relationship, it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. When we see all the good things in somebody,
Yeah.
you know, we see all the wonderful things that they do, oh, you're so kind, you're so thoughtful, you're so sweet, you're so encouraging. And then we tend to confirm that belief in the person. And maybe we don't see the things that might irritate us or annoy us, or, you know, the flaws that they have. And then all of a sudden, maybe we start seeing those, and then everything kind of changes. We're like, wait, I thought you were a different person.
Right.
But maybe we're just allowing our bias to run free, and we're confirming the things we want to believe about somebody.
Right.
I was having a conversation with
you got really excited.
My eyes. I was having a conversation with AJ, a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that, like kind of the hope of somebody being a certain way, or the expectation, even the fear of somebody being a certain way.
Right.
We start looking for those things before they even do those things. We start looking for them to let us down. We start looking for them to set us free, right? We start looking for them and kind of look for ways to confirm what we are already expecting of them.
Right.
And this ability, this natural tendency inside of us to accept and to confirm the things that we already believe, and to ignore the things that are going to discredit or go against what we believe.
Right.
I think on a personal level, that happens really easily.
Right.
And the way that we see ourselves as well, you know, we kind of mentioned that a while ago in another episode, but the way that we see ourselves, we can believe things, and then allow our experiences of life. The example you gave before we recorded was, we think nobody wants to be around us. You know, we feel lonely, feel like nobody wants a relationship with us. Nobody wants to be our friend or whatever. And then somebody gives us a text saying like, hey, sorry, I can't hang out today.
Right.
Then we're like, see, everybody,
nobody
wants to hang out with me because it's one person.
Right.
Sorry, was that Siri?
Yeah, it was Siri. Yeah. she's lonely, bro.
Siri's lonely.
She wants to hang out.
And that happens, I think, within ourself, when we can hold ourselves to a smaller box than maybe we should really fit in or be inside of.
Yeah, we can really hold people to those things, and that's where it gets really dangerous in relationships. And we've touched on this a couple times in past episodes, but just the idea that you could have a belief already inside of you, you can have a feeling already inside of you. We talked about rejection in the last episode, where you feel rejected, or you have an early memory of being rejected, and so you've created this belief that you're rejected, you know, or that people reject you. And so what happens is you bring that into relationship, and you already have a bias towards rejection. Right. So instead of looking for the ways that this person is loving on me, or caring for me, or speaking kind over me, we're looking for the ways that that person is rejecting me. And because we're looking for those things, we're going to find those things, even if the evidence doesn't line up with it. And that's why I think it's so dangerous. Because someone could do something kind for us, right? But then we still have kind of that view of they're going to reject us. And so we can't even purely see the good act that they did for us, the kindness that they had towards us, because we're seeing already still through our rejection, which is crazy. Because so we will deny the actual evidence of how someone is treating us, or what the relationship is actually looking like, to still confirm those beliefs we have about that person, or about us, or about relationships. And that's what's so crazy, like that you could not be open to actually what's going on, and you're blinding yourself. And it's almost like it's I wouldn't say it's willingly, because once you realize these things, you can start reflecting, and you can change. So probably unwillingly, you're subjecting yourself to blindness. Right? Like you're entering into these things, and you think that you're getting the truth, or you're seeing clearly, but you're not.
Right.
And
because
so,
we're seeing something.
Right.
And we're just interpreting that to be the truth. We take the evidence. There could be no evidence there, but we'll look at something, and we'll make it evidence. Right. We'll make it mean something else. And and something else, I think a video we were watching, it was talking about, we can believe something even if the evidence is against it. We still have this tendency to believe that this other thing is true instead. Even if we're seeing evidence that goes against what we're believing.
Yeah. And I love what that video, we were studying up on this a little bit before we started, and it said that they had two groups of people. They were Democrats and Republicans, right?
Yeah, 2004 is after the presidential debate.
After the presidential debate,
it took two groups.
And what they did, I think it was Kerry versus Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what they did is they had 30 people. And they had 15 people in two groups. 15 people were Republicans and 15 people were Democrats. And what they did is they took something that Bush said and something that Kerry said, and they swapped them. So, right?
No.
Is that what it is?
So both candidates had gone back and forth on certain topics, meaning they had said things and then later said something else, and both of them did that throughout the campaigning.
Oh, okay.
And so they had double standards, or said things that seemed hypocritical.
Right.
And what they did is when they interviewed the two groups, the one group would heavily criticize the opposing candidate
for switching sides.
Like, see, he's inconsistent. He said all these things that were not lining up. He doesn't know what he stands for, and then gave a whole bunch of grace and totally ignored the times that their preferential candidate or whatever did the same thing.
Right.
So they ignored the flaws in the other person and heavily criticized their opposing side. Right. And both parties did this. Both groups did this.
Right.
And then whenever they were talking about this, like disproving the other person, pointing out how bad the other person was, why their candidate is like the better candidate, it wasn't the frontal cortex, the part of your brain that deals with reasoning and logic, that was active.
Right.
It was I can't remember what it's called, the orbital frontal cortex, which is like more of your emotional side.
Yeah.
The part that processes emotions, that was the part in the brain that was active when they were
defending,
trying to like reason why one was better than the other.
Right.
It wasn't the reasoning part of their brain that was active, but the emotional part of the brain that was active.
Right.
And on top of that, they found out that they were getting hits of dopamine,
which is crazy.
Their brain was releasing dopamine while this is happening.
Yeah.
Dopamine it's like a feel-good hormone, and that gets released inside of us when we do things that we enjoy. It's something that happens when we're in a relationship that's good and it feels good. It's
highly addictive.
It's highly addictive. Dopamine gets people addicted to things. Whenever you have a high, I don't know, I was gonna say dose, but I don't want it to, not like we're taking it, but when our brain is releasing dopamine, it feels good and we want more of it. Mm-hmm. And so these people were talking about, where they thought they were talking about facts,
right?
And they were just getting addicted, maybe not getting addicted, but they were saying all this stuff that was just making them feel good, that sided with what they already believed about this person, right? Ignoring the side that went against what they believed and confirming the things that they believed already. And they were feeling good by this. And I think this kind of brings us to a question of why. Why do we have confirmation bias? Why do we try to stick with something that we believe in so much?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know, we had some thoughts we talked about a bit earlier. I think one of the big things was a sense of community and safety, which I think makes sense with the dopamine, because we feel like we belong to a group of people. We feel like we are right in what we believe, and it kind of feels good to belong. And another thing was safety as well. Like, it feels safer to stick with what we believe in. I think you mentioned a couple minutes ago that our beliefs have a big impact on who we are kind of, they're a big part of us, right? They were like, we take them personally. If
they're important to us.
They're important to us, right? If my team wins, I feel like I won. If my team lost, I feel like I lost.
Right.
And AJ was talking about the recent presidential election, and he's talking about whenever he saw the results, he felt like he lost personally. He was personally defeated. Because the person he wanted to win didn't win. And it was like, what he thought was going to happen didn't happen,
Right.
And we can have these moments of feeling so connected to what we believe that we want to defend it. Right. We want to protect it. We want it to be true.
Right.
Because I think it's safer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's huge. The safety thing is really huge. We find safety in consistency as well. And so it is, it's almost painful, I would say, that you could have a belief for 20 years and then someone could present you evidence that says that's wrong.
Right.
Right? Because I mean that could be troublesome for a myriad of different reasons, but you could think that all that time was wasted maybe, and so it's like, no, I've had these beliefs, I'm going to keep these beliefs, and I'm not going to accept another belief because that would like change me, or that I just waste all this time believing this and I was stuck in that, and now you're presenting this different evidence, so we don't really want to confront those things because of what they mean about us, like that we could actually be wrong as well. So there's safety in just in keeping it low key, I guess, keeping the same beliefs, keeping the same people, keeping the same party, keeping the same evidence, confirming that over and over again. Cause then you don't really have to deal as well with the tension between those two beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. Cause it's easy to just go on, hey, I'm on the same flow of the river. I'm not trying to get off on another path right now. I'm not trying to have something cause tension or rile me up right now, or because we find safety, we find peace, we find comfort in having those solid beliefs. So when something confronts that, we're afraid of mystery, and I think us as humans too, we want the answers.
Right. We want to know what we can depend on.
What we can depend on. That's good. Yeah.
What is true? What is consistent? We don't want to question the things that we think we already settled on. You know? It's like, no. This is what has grounded me.
Right. Yeah.
Right. This is what has grounded me. I don't want to question this. I don't want to change it. And we take a defensive stance rather than trying to be open to actually exploring what might be true.
Yeah.
When we defend what we think we believe is true, we close ourselves off from the possibility of learning more truth.
Right.
Because we're closing, like putting up walls around what we already believe.
Right.
And so if there's anything inside of that that's not correct, or if there's anything outside of that that is correct, or maybe a better way of believing, we don't give ourselves the chance of actually attaining that knowledge or learning more. Yeah. Right. When we think we know it all, we don't grow at all.
Oh, nice.
Know-it-alls don't grow at all. You know what I mean? Because we think we know everything, so we stop learning.
We stop learning.
And I think the same thing happens when we think we know that what we believe in is the way to believe. We stop trying to learn anything more than that.
Right.
And we close ourselves off from trying to learn another perspective.
Right. I think it's so funny because all these episodes seem to have a common thread. And this is something that you said in the first episode. We shouldn't be afraid of finding out truth, because if we actually let go of our beliefs, because we're actually seeking out truth, guess what you're going to end up with? You're going to end up with truth. But it's almost like the confirmation bias. It keeps us afraid from being open to a different thought than us, but we should be open to those things because those things could help lead us to truth. Maybe the counterpoint to what you're believing could strengthen your point, and be like, I researched into that and I still am on this side. Or maybe it would change, your belief on something, but hey, now you feel like you're closer to actually believing something that's true. Yeah. Right. And we have this, it's so funny. We hold on so tightly to the truths that we have and constantly confirm these things and surround ourselves with people that confirm those things and watch videos that confirm these things and listen to people and artists and influential people that confirm those things, but it's not necessarily helpful, because we're not seeking those things out for ourselves, and we're not actually we're deluding ourselves. And we're giving the illusion that we're really walking in truth, or we're walking in, what's right. But really, we're not taking a good reflection and saying, hey, what could I be wrong in, Yeah. And I think that could be actually...
I wonder how often we ask that question.
Yeah.
What could I be wrong in?
What could I be wrong? Yeah. How could I be wrong?
Right. That's crazy. That would totally change, I think, a lot.
Right.
If I were to stop and ask myself that question, where might I be wrong? Where could I be wrong about this?
Right.
Wow.
And then I would say, in no place, Darryl, you're perfect.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. You're just biased.
Yeah, you're my friend, so I'm biased. I don't look at the evidence clearly, man. There's definitely some stuff in there. But yeah, I think that's it's incredibly important for us to be aware that cognitive bias is a real thing, that confirmation bias is a real thing, that it's permeated throughout our entire culture, in our civilizations, our societies, to surround ourselves with people that believe and think the same way. And then in our social media and our regular media is all media, social media? No, social media.
I don't know. It kind of feels like it now.
Yeah, it does, huh? In our media and our social media, all of those things, I watch one news station and that gives me, this side of the coin, or I watch this other news station that gives me this side of the coin. And what we're doing when we're watching those things is we're constantly confirming the beliefs that we already have, So I think really the solution to that, and is to take a deep reflection, and maybe the first thing is to reflect on, why do I think these beliefs are keeping me safe? First and foremost,
Right, yeah.
Would it be the worst thing ever to be rejected from this community, if I actually believed a different way than them, because that is a hard thing as well. If your community rejects you for what you believe, are they even a good community? And that's a whole different topic in itself. But seriously, if you have friends and then say that you have Democratic friends and then you become a Republican and then they stop being your friend, it's
right,
like,
what is that?
Were you guys even my friends? Like, were we just bonding over the fact of our political party? Because is that even genuine community in the first place? So take a deep reflection and say, why are these things important to me? Why is this making me feel safe? Would it be that bad to leave this community? And then ask that question, where am I wrong? Or where could I be wrong? Or what could I research more to learn something different?
Yeah, I think that with that, I know that when I first started to, what I mentioned earlier, looking up like evolution versus creationism, I would look up evolutionary arguments in order to find the flaws, right? That's where I started. I was looking up the other side, and so I can nitpick at it and to figure out where it's wrong. And I wasn't doing it to try to actually understand, why do people believe this? So I think that it's important for whenever we start to research the other side, I think that is what you said is key, to give ourselves, I think firstly, we need to give ourselves permission to be wrong.
Right.
That's okay for us to be wrong. And when we start looking from the other side to try to understand another perspective, to do it actually trying to understand the other side, right? With the question of, why do people believe this? I don't believe this, but why do people believe this? Right? And so we can actually try to take on another perspective, not researching the other side and thinking, what are all the things that are wrong about this belief? Right? But actually,
because you're going to find those things.
Because we'll find those things, right? We find what we look for. And maybe if we were to look at what's wrong about what I believe, that's something else we can do.
Right. Yeah.
What are some potential flaws in what I'm believing? And if we intentionally recognize that we have bias and then go out actively trying to see another perspective,
right,
I think that helps. And one of the other things that we were looking at was talking about the community, a diverse community discussing things together, bringing various point of views.
Yeah.
Was more likely to come to a fuller picture, something that was more factual or more true or a better way of behaving than just a group of people who believe the same things.
Right.
And they just continued on with confirming their own beliefs together, but taking opposing sides and having a conversation about what the differences are, and actually listening to understand and trying to see, okay, well, which one of these is actually more beneficial? Which one of these is actually more true?
Right.
And it's easy for us to, especially with social media and the political climate, everything's so ostracized, to stick to our sides and not even talk to the other side, not even try to understand the other side, but assume that the other side is wrong and false, and therefore we're not even going to consider it. Right. But I think that the reason we have two parties, like two major parties as a nation, is because we understand that there needs to be a conversation and a balance between the two. Right. And it's a little extreme right now, but I think even on a personal life, it's okay for us to have friends that have different opinions than us, right? Or see things differently. Yeah. And that can help us not be so closed-minded in certain areas, but to find a bigger picture. We talked about in the beginning that, God sees every side. He sees everything. He knows exactly what perspective. He knows exactly everything that's involved with understanding and believing certain things. Right. And he's not closed off to talking to somebody else, right? That's not on the same page as him. Right. Yeah. But willing to meet us where we are and to bring us closer to truth. And I think that in our own lives, if we can open up to that, to allow God to correct us, or allowed God to provide a new perspective, and ask him, like, how can I see things more like you?
Yeah.
Right. How can I see things in a bigger picture?
Right.
And we take a step back from our own beliefs for a second, just to look at them and to observe them with God's perspective.
Right.
God, what's true about this? What's good about this? Is there anything that I'm believing that's wrong, or anything I'm believing
Harmful.
that's unhealthy? Is there a better way for me to be believing this about this person,
Totally.
or about this situation? And how can I not just get stuck in confirming what I already believe about this person, or about this situation, or about these things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super key. Super, super key. So yeah, all of our Boggies out there, our beautiful Boggies, our beautiful people. Yeah, we encourage you to take a good reflection, to take a good gander. A gander.
Yeah.
At maybe some of those biases, those that you have already in your mind, some of those belief patterns that you've already created, and maybe some of the ways that you can start seeing now, maybe in social media or the TV that you watch or the people that you hang around, how you're constantly confirming those beliefs, and then asking yourself, asking your friends, asking God, where could I be wrong? Well, how could I change? Actually surround yourself in communities where people do believe a little bit differently than you, because that is, in the council of all of those people, maybe you could come to a better consensus on what is actually true, what is actually good.
Wisdom is in the council of many.
Yeah, that's right. So we love you guys. You guys are incredible. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope that it frees your mind.
Yeah.
Yes. This is Aaron.
This is Darryl.
And this is your brain on
God.